Good evening, Mallory.
Good morning, Sam. Welcome back to Nobody Leaves, where we have to watch something that we recommended to each other every week. And I'm the quirky host, and Sam's the one that criticizes me.
What audiences don't know is that every episode of this podcast starts with us trying to sync up our feeds with a universal basic clock, and we're now 3 episodes in, 4 if you count our test episode, and every single time you have failed to start recording on the time that you set. You go, okay, we're going to go at 30 seconds. 25, 26.
I'm in.
27,
I'm confident, you know. I think I know what I'm
29. I messed it up. I missed it. I'm sorry. It happens every week.
It's because
every week
I
sit there and go, is this the right OBS file or is this one 4 seconds long? I don't know.
It's because I click the go live button every single time, and then all of a sudden the menu starts popping up for my live settings. I'm like, oh, I've failed again.
We're not playing D&D.
We're
talking about
D&D.
manga.
We're talking about manga and anime, my 2 favorite things.
Exactly. At some point, I'll have a recommendation that's not those things, but that's not this week.
That's true. I was thinking about it because I put a lot of debate. This has been the most debate. Okay, well, that was a stupid thing to say. I was gonna say this is the most thought that I've put into a recommendation, but it will be my second recommendation. So
that can be true.
Yeah, it is, but it's also I really was on the fence with a few things, and one of the considerations was if I don't do an anime or manga, then Sam will be the anime or manga guy because that's all he's recommended.
No, next one's not going to be
yeah.
one. That is, I'm calling it now.
I'm
gonna make you watch All Quiet on the Western Front or something. I don't know. This week we're reading Things Fall Apart.
I love Things Fall Apart. We gotta read Things Fall Apart. What's your
too.
favorite high school book that I'm pretty sure we read probably most of the same ones.
We did go to high school together, so that would track.
Yeah, but sometimes different teachers would put a little different spin on that. Was that true, or did they make us read the same thing?
No, they did put a little spin on it.
Yeah.
I like Things Fall Apart a lot. In high school, we actually didn't finish reading it, and so then I went and bought it 6 years later and actually finished it.
I stole it from high school.
That's good.
We
only read portions of it, and for years I was like, well, how does it end? I think they told us and then he kills his surrogate son and dies, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, spoilers.
But,
spoilers
we never
for Things Fall Apart.
Oh yeah, whoops. I think we literally didn't read anything past the initial time jump.
Yeah, well, because I remember there was a whole kerfuffle, and then we weren't supposed to read it. But then that was the one time that I read the book fully on time, and I read it on a plane over winter break. I remember, and that was my craziest book heist of all because it was a library book. I read it, I finished it, and then I kept it for 3 more years, and then I went back to yeah, and then I went back to high school and gave it back. So that's pretty kind of me. But it was there was a point where I just put it on my shelf because I was in college and I'm not going back. So it was just a stolen library book on my shelf. But I eventually turned it back in. But
to answer your question, I think The Stranger was probably the best thing we read.
Oh,
Albert Camus, right? Yeah.
Yes, I like that one too.
That was
cool.
pretty good. And then in college, I read Kurt Vonnegut, and then I never looked back.
I have never read Kurt Vonnegut. I didn't read much in college, even though I'm an English major. Oh no, my mic's falling. Fuck. It started falling in slow motion. It's gonna be a funny edit. Okay. Yeah, no, I feel like I never read very much in college. I read fucking Gulliver's Travels, and I didn't even really read that because it kind of pissed me off with how boring it was. I had a really boring class where I didn't read very much. It was King Arthur maybe like the
Mm-hmm. Did you read like
or
Canterbury Tales or something?
something like that. But I feel like even older. What's the one where it's like there's a bunch of
Oh,
people and they all go on like a adventure.
like Knights of the Round Table? Like what kind of style?
Canterbury Tales sounds more right,
I think that
but
might be
it's
what you're talking about because it's like different.
yeah,
It's always a different person in like the traveling company, basically,
yeah, maybe no. It's
and they're
like
all
it's
like
like a whole group.
allegorical.
Yeah, they're all allegorical. That was the big thing. It
That's
was like they're
probably
all
Canterbury
like
Tales.
different statuses in like society and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I didn't like that, and then we had Gulliver's Travels like right after to follow it up, and I did not like that either. Um,
What's the worst book you had to read in school?
God, man, do you have a least favorite one?
Team of Rivals is pretty tough just because it was like 1,500 pages long.
Oh my God,
Which is
yeah,
a book
we
that
read
Mallory
this
and I both
book.
read
Yeah,
about Lincoln, but actually it was about his Treasury Secretary, Salmon Chase, who I will
it was
forever
about
remember
it was about
because his name
Lincoln
is
and his
Salmon.
like girl squad, and he had like
Mm-hmm.
his like
It's
his
how he girl bossed all over the Confederacy. Yeah.
yeah, well, it was like his Taylor Swift besties. Like it was like talking all about them and like where they went and like following them all. Um, and yeah, and talking about
And
how
it's
Lincoln
really,
slept in the same
really
bed
long.
with his best friend because that was cool back then. And we need to
Yes.
go back to those days. I want to be able to sleep in the bed with my best friend.
What, give your best friend a little smooch before bed?
Yeah, because the homie's good at it. We need to
Exactly.
go back. We used to be a society.
Maybe Lincoln
Um,
had it right, maybe.
yeah, exactly.
I know that might be controversial these days, but I think
Yeah,
Lincoln was a pretty good president.
I know there's a lot of Lincoln haters out there, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Anyway, let's talk about Solanin.
Yeah, no, when I think of Chaucer, I really think of Enio, however the hell you say his name. Eno Asano.
It was Chaucer.
So this week we read Solanin, which is a manga by Enio Asano, whose name I don't screw up ever, who also made a little manga called Goodnight Pun Pun, which is the most wholesome cinnamon bun of a manga ever. It is behind me, right there. And I had never read this before, like 3 weeks ago. And so it was top of mind, and I said, I'm going to make Mallory read this because it is short. And Mallory doesn't like manga. So, Mallory,
I'm learning.
did you like Solanin?
Well, no,
Did
I
you
enjoyed
read
it quite
it?
a bit. I did read it. I finished
Okay.
reading it about a hour and a half. No, longer than that. It would have been like 2.5 hours ago.
So it's fresh of
I
mind.
found like yeah, I found like a cafe where it's like I can get like a phone charger so I can make that my like sit and read spot. So that's what I've been doing. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. Like it was really like short and sweet, and like you're in and out with the story. So like I felt like it was impactful. I was like a little not sure about like keeping up the trend of like cosplaying characters in every single podcast episode, but I did
This would be
actually
the easiest
do it.
one ever. You just need a beanie and like a
Yeah.
little like bandage.
So I'm gonna send you. Oh, I could have done a bandage. That's right. So I'm pretty proud of how it turned out for considering it's just clothes that were like lying around. But yeah, it's
The fact that you had like a polka dot skirt is very lucky.
yeah. No, it's real frumpy core. It's real like, you know. I don't want to draw attention to my figure. Like I would tuck this shirt in normally, but it's very Japanese, very. I don't want to draw too much attention to my body, so that's my look.
This
for
might be
today.
the only thing we ever cover that is like
Mm-hmm.
easy to cosplay. because everyone just wears clothes.
Yeah,
Like
no,
even like
totally.
the rockabilly guy just wears like a leather jacket and jeans.
Yeah, no, which is like an aspect is like I feel I have a little bit of uh, like ambivalent feeling towards the manga, and I feel like the
Would you
fact
care to
that the
elaborate?
fashion, yeah, like I feel like the fashion being so plain is one of the things that I feel like exemplifies that feeling of like I don't know. It's weird. Like sometimes like I feel like sometimes there are people who are like all about like youth and rock energy, and this is very much a story about like uh young people who are like pursuing their passion. It's following this like couple living in Tokyo who like kind of go back and forth, like starting and quitting these like dead end jobs that they need to make ends meet, but they have this like passion for music that they chase and give up, and it's like just kind of like following that story. And like sometimes it feels a little empty or bland, or like they have nothing to say, you know what I mean? Like at the core of it, it's like I
Right.
just want to be uh like I want to like follow in the footsteps of this like rock and roll anti-establishment passionate tradition, but I'm not really like necessarily like saying anything. And that's not to say that this manga has absolutely nothing to say, but there's like an element of like I don't know if impotence is the right word, or like just
I think
plainness
that's
to it where
yeah,
yeah.
it's very like I don't know. That feels intentional to me that these characters themselves are
Mm.
kind of like listless or lackluster. Like their
Mm-mm-mm.
dreams, even when they are in the period of the manga where they're actually like going for it, their version of going for it is like we get a single recorded. Like it's not like we're a mega popular band. Like,
Yeah.
and to me that feels intentional. Like I think I had this thought yesterday that this could have just been a book. Like it
Mm.
doesn't necessarily have to be a manga. Like it is so introspective and it is so like reliant on the main character's narration to kind of pull you through this like time period of like a year-ish time. Uh and I was like that feels more like a book structure than a manga to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add on to that the fact that the style of the manga and also the style of this author's manga in general, from what I've read so far, which is just this and Pun Pun, Good Night Pun
Mm-hmm.
Pun, that is hyper realistic backgrounds. Like it looks just like a city. I believe it's done by like taking photos and tracing over them. And then in this manga, characters who dress very plainly, they look like post college burnouts that you see all the time or that maybe you've been at points in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and to me, that was very effective in the sense that I could like transplant my own problems about adulthood like onto them or like project
Yeah.
into the characters pretty easily. And that's a trick that this author I think does really well in his follow-up series, which came out after this manga, which is Goodnight Pun Pun, where he makes the main character a little bird caricature, but everyone else is like a normal human, so that
Yeah.
you then, and the intention behind that is that you project onto that character, like you can approach that character with no preconceived notions. Like you don't know if they're handsome or ugly,
Mm-hmm.
or even at times like how old they are, how old they look, like how all their physical traits melt away because they're just this little like bird emoji looking thing. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
is like a much more bold and interesting version of what this manga does, which is just like make
I see.
all of its characters these like very generic post college adults.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Like, or understand what they're going for with that. Like the idea of something being a little bit formless like makes it a little bit more accessible. Because
Mm-hmm.
like I think there was a scene that like rubbed me the wrong way for some reason in the like latter half. I will say I feel like I preferred the first half a lot more to the second half because I read it in
Really?
halves basically. Yeah, weirdly enough. But like I think like there's this part where uh uh Taneda, who's like the like
The
boyfriend of the
boyfriend.
main character, who's like kind of has this like big dream about like being a musician or whatever, like it's showing him like trying to figure out like what he wants to like write about or whatever, and he's kind of like, and like I don't know, you can argue it's intentional, it probably is intentional, but like something about it like I feel like hit the mark of like what felt like a little empty about the series to me, which is like when he's like saying like I could write a song about love, but I don't like no one wants to hear what I have to say about love. And then he's like,
Mm-hmm.
I could write something that's like anti-establishment, but like, where's that gonna get? Like, I don't have anything to say. Like, it's
Right.
kind of like, yeah, you don't have anything to say. You know what I mean? Like, you
My
want to be a
opinions don't
musician, but
matter.
you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know, like get an opinion, but I can see like at the same time if he had like if he came out with like a fucking leftist screed, like he's not gonna be like as easy
Not terribly
for
interesting
like
either. Yeah.
everyone to relate to. Like it kind of kills what the point of the story is, which is to be a little bit like broader, I guess. So that maybe makes sense, but
To me, that is the point. Like, I think that
hmm
it's taking these characters who are not terribly interesting and showing their least interesting aspects, right? Like, you don't, with that character, you almost never see him performing, which I think is very
yeah,
intentional. Like, the most exciting things happen off page, and then it's like it picks up with like arriving at the studio, leaving the studio, celebrating after. You almost never see their concert performance, or if you do, it's like very
mm
brief. I don't think
mm
the series gives like a really full picture of like what it feels like to perform on stage until the very end, when
yeah.
he's already not in the picture anymore. And to me, that felt really intentional. Like it's about the days where you don't have a job and you're just kind of like listlessly like going to the
Mm,
store or sitting by the river.
mm,
And I also found that really boring at times, more so in the first
yeah.
half. But I liked little moments here and there in the first half a lot. Like I liked dealing with the main character Mako.
Yeah, Mako.
Yeah, Mako's mother. I thought was like a really interesting little like
Mm.
side plot of
Yeah, that was
like
a really good scene, I think.
there's a lot of expectations about like how a parent would react to a character not like quitting their job and not having a plan and being pretty listless and hiding a
hmm
boyfriend and whatnot. And then it goes
Yeah.
a lot more realistically, I felt like, than what was expected, which is just that like, oh, you'll figure it out, and I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but I'm still going to like needle you in certain ways that only I can.
Yeah. Like it was a very nice scene to see like, Mako's like hiding her boyfriend cuz it's like kind of um I mean, I was going to say in Japan, but people also kind of have this in America sometimes where it's like you shouldn't be like living with someone until you're married and like that kind of thing, like that traditional mindset is like a lot more widespread in Japan, so like
Mm-hmm.
she's just assumes that her mom wouldn't approve of it and hides it, and like it was really nice to see her mom just be like, like whatever, like it's and yeah, same about like the quitting the job. She's like, I don't want you to quit the job, but I'm not gonna like try and puppeteer you and like make you go back to the job, you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
um
I think there's like a slight implication there that she's kind of ashamed of her boyfriend, who is this kind of lackluster,
mm,
barely working, uh, doesn't really have any goals or dreams character. And so it's interesting to
yeah.
me that like the catalyst for the series of her quitting her job ultimately is like to then push him to quit his job and to pursue the music career one last time. And that's like the
Yeah.
only part of the manga where like everything is humming, where like everyone's excited and actually passionate about something, and it kind of has this
Mhm.
like reverberating effect on the other characters from their college days, which I
Yeah.
like, but then it all like gets taken away.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, he died.
He does die.
Dude.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah. I mean, that really hit. I think when I was reading it, like, it did hit, like, when he just dies all of a sudden, like, after. It's like a series of dramatic events where it's like he gets like because it's been so much like I'm bored, I'm free all the time, I have nothing to do kind of stuff. And then it starts
Mm-hmm.
building up this like music thing, and then he gets to the like record label, and record label man's like, we want to replace you with a hot girl and ruin the music or whatever. Um, so then he doesn't move forward with the record deal, and then he's like, we should break up, and then he is like, and then she's like, don't break up with me, and then he's like, okay, and then he's like, I'm going out for cigarettes, and doesn't come back for like fucking 4 days, and then she's like, oh my god, he just like up and left, and then he's like,
Mm-hmm.
actually, I like got my job back, and I think the future's looking up for us, and you're like, wow, the future's really looking up for them, and then he dies, and you're just like, I think in the moment, like, I really felt like the emotion of like, because I was like getting excited for them and getting excited
Mm-hmm.
that like he was taking his failures in stride and like, um, you know, uh, uh, like okay, like I'll pick up the pieces, I'll like earn money so that I can live, and then like, that doesn't mean my dream's dead forever or whatever. Like I was like, that
Mm-hmm.
feels like the healthy mindset, and he finally got there. And then like him dying, like having that snatched away, like after being invested in that, like that stung. But then afterwards, when I was thinking about it, I was like, it's kind of crazy that he went out like, I don't know, if someone just like walked out on me and was like, oh yeah, I was actually like getting a job, I just didn't fucking text you back, and like you could have thought I was dead for like a week, I would be so fucking angry. And like, I don't know, I
to
feel like the way it is like playing with like, are they gonna break up? Did he just abandon her? It's like, oh no, he's just fucking dead. It's like, oh my god. But I mean,
Well, I think they're also
it's
playing
cool.
with like, has he gone and like committed suicide somewhere? Like they like there's
Right.
just because you don't see him at all for a minute there,
Mm-hmm.
and the characters have a very like their reaction being like this is so out of character for this person. I think makes it
Mm-hmm.
more like tense for the reader while you're like, oh, what is going on with
Absolutely.
this person? To me, what's
Yeah.
so tragic about that character is that he never commits to a decision for like the entire manga.
Mm.
Like he's playing in the band, but it doesn't really mean anything anymore, and he has this job and he could make it a full career, but he doesn't really want to, and he's not the one to decide my music, my single Solanin is worth it. It is worth not taking this like taking the money right at the record label. It's
Yeah.
his girlfriend who
Mako
makes that decision
decides.
for him,
Yeah.
right? And she's the one who
Really.
decides that he has to go for it with the music, and he can't commit to breaking up with her. He can't commit to returning home. He can't commit to his
Mm-hmm.
career. Like he never in my mind I wasn't feeling positive when he was coming back to her before he gets hit by the car. I was like, oh well, they're just gonna sink back into the same pattern of like not really deciding anything. And it's still really sad when he
Yeah.
dies, but it was like because it felt like they were making like baby steps towards hopefully like some kind of fulfillment. But in my mind it was like, oh well, what's this guy gonna do now? Like they're gonna go back to that apartment and pretend to be happy, and it's like that's not really great.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out why I didn't feel so negatively towards him. I think I really liked him, like from the jump. I don't know why.
I like
I
him
think
in the
because
flashbacks in the back half more than in the like when he's alive.
I think I liked him when he's alive. This is crazy that we have this different reactions to it, but yeah, like
Yes.
there's something like one of my favorite parts was like the beginning. I really like when she is like it starts with our like main character and she's just like on the train and at work and she's like all her thoughts are like I hate everyone. I wish everyone would die. Like she's just like so fucking negative. And like
Mm-hmm.
comes home to her boyfriend and is like God, like my useless boyfriend's on the couch again or whatever, and it's like he like I don't know, immediately from the way he's like smiling and being jovial, like something about that I think just like clicked where I was like, I like this, I like his personality, I like this
Mm-hmm.
dynamic kind of.
He,
And
he
like
he
I
seems
think
to make her feel like safe, and that's great. That's like what she needs definitely in that first few chapters.
yeah. And I like the I think I was really invested in their like relationship. I think that was also part of like why the death initially hit me because it's like I think I just did enjoy their like interactions and I felt like they yeah, like they seemed like so comfortable around each other and like
Mm-hmm.
this thing does come between them where she's like trying to push him to achieve like his dreams of being like a big singer where it's like kind of put out there as like is it just her projecting, is this really what he wants type of thing.
Right.
Um but like even through all that like I don't know, I was kind of just rooting for their relationship, I feel like. um and I will say I was really glad they didn't pair her off with anyone at the end because there was kind of like almost a uh there's like a love triangle that starts with like her boyfriend who's like the singer guitarist and then the drummer of the band,
Mm-hmm.
which
The guy
is
who
kind
works
of a
for the
nothing love
pharmacy.
triangle. Yeah, it's just like introduced that like the drummer guy has like kind of like this crush on her that he doesn't say anything about because
Right.
you know. And then like later down the line, like after her boyfriend dies, she starts working at a flower shop and meets this like younger guy who works at the flower shop, and he kind of has like obvious feelings for her and is like confessing his love for her, and it's like it seems like they're now building a triangle between these three, and I'm like I was very happy that they ended it with her not dating anyone because I just didn't like, I don't know, none of the
Did
other
you
relationships just like
did you read
clicked
the
for me that
epilogue
well.
chapter?
Did I miss something?
There's a chapter that takes place like 10, 11 years later.
Oh my gosh. Okay, tell me about the epilogue
Yeah.
chapter. I missed it.
Um, it basically is that she becomes what not what she hated, but like what she was at the start, which is like she's working for a company and is just kind of like a salary woman.
Mm. Mm.
And she does end up dating the kid from the flower shop, which to me felt like
Mm.
settling in a weird way.
Yeah,
I
he
really
he was
like
definitely the settling choice, I feel like.
right. I really like how she turns him down initially, where I think she
Mm.
just says something along the lines of like "You're so young," and in reality, they are probably like 3-4 years apart max. But
Yeah.
she just feels so. It seems to me that she feels so old in that moment, and it's that weird. I related to her character a lot. That's probably my favorite part of this
Mm.
manga, and to
Mm.
me, it captured that early 20s to mid 20s feeling of I I both feel like unprepared or I feel so young and so old at the same time. And that's such a weird spot to be in life. And I think that this manga
Mm.
captures that really well, where
Mm.
she's not ready to enter the workforce and kind of like sell her soul to the company for like, you know, just to like work like mediocre to live this mediocre lifestyle, but she's also too scared to pursue anything else. And it just to me that like
Mm.
really resonated as someone who also quit their job right out of college because I was just feeling like listless or like you get that weird like post college wanderlust of like what if I struck out and did something different And
Yeah.
I am now definitely in the like salary man version of my life, and it's just like, oh well, that's not
Yeah.
as exciting as like playing in a band or what have you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's like I was kind of curious about that because obviously you were the one that like chose this and like you have that experience of like, like quitting your job at a certain point without like having a next step like locked in, you know what I mean?
Very much so.
Which is definitely not an experience I have. And I feel like I like really lucked into like I don't want to give myself zero credit for my like life decisions, but I really lucked into like the position I'm in where I'm like teaching English because it's like I feel like I get a lot of joy out of my career, and I also feel like I spent a lot of time like really agonizing over my like career decisions. I think in like high school, like I was in a position where there was like a lot of like pressure, so I feel like when I got out, like I feel like a lot of the like listless stuff, like I can see it sometimes in like other people, and I don't necessarily relate because I've just kind of made peace with like a lot of stuff. I don't know
That's
if
fair.
I don't know, but I feel
I
like I'm yeah, like I chose this, so I'm like, okay, well I'm gonna take some of the negatives, I guess, and I've just really like, okay, I've taken the L on this like years before I even started working this job almost. Like that's kind of my feeling,
You
but yeah,
made
I'm
peace with
curious
your
what
like
you think.
choices essentially.
Yeah, cuz it's like there's no perfect job or perfect life that we're going to live, and like especially like if you want to be like, ooh, capitalism whatever, it's like there's going to be like this negative kind of undercurrent to like so many things that like are being forced to like fit these certain molds that are like easier for like our current economic structure to like understand almost.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I think I've just really been like, yeah, this is the kind of place that I want to occupy, and just like made my peace with it. But yeah, I'm curious like what you think about it.
I've had this conversation with a lot of our mutual friends over the years uh, about fulfillment, right? And
Mm,
like what fulfills you. And we have friends who are very career minded who
mm,
um, get a lot of their enjoyment out of building a career and doing work that they can be proud of and working in a field that excites them. And so putting a lot of energy into getting that perfect career in that field, right?
mm-hmm.
And that has its own shortcomings and pitfalls, but also when you can achieve it is great because you go to work,
Mm-hmm.
the old adage of like if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Like there are people who strive for that. And
Mm,
then I've always been more in the camp of like a job is a job, and then it's what you do outside of that job that fulfills you. Like I try and fill my life with interesting things outside of work, and it took me a long time to get to that position. And some of that is doing
mm,
things like this, or things like my YouTube
yeah.
channel, or things like
Mm-hmm.
just extracurriculars outside of work. But
Yeah.
when before I kind of came to that answer for like my own personal life journey or what have you, which is of course going to evolve and change over time, um, I was very much like this character where I
Mm,
didn't know what I wanted, felt a whole lot of guilt or shame or what have you for not being able to like stick with my first job, just not vibing with it and feeling really bad and like being depressed at that job, being depressed after leaving that job. Um, and yeah, so those aspects of this manga really resonated with me a lot because I think
mm,
this is a character who ultimately, spoilers for the epilogue that you missed, goes back into the workforce and kind of surrenders herself to just what you are forced to do as an adult, which is like grow up, right? And growing up isn't
mm,
fun, and growing up isn't does not allow you long term to just sit on a riverbank and dream and think about what you could potentially do. But also, I think you're right that these characters don't have these big ambitions, and that feels more realistic to me, even if it doesn't make for as entertaining of a manga. Like, I'd much rather, in some ways, I'd much rather read, like, Akane Banashi, which is a series I love that is about someone trying to pursue a career in Rakugo. And it's like, that's just so much more instantly gratifying and engaging because it's like working your way through an artistic field as opposed to like, I'm going to work at a flower shop and then I'm going to go back to my company, or I'm going to do graphic design. I like that I don't know if you noticed this, but like the piece that he's like photoshopping early on in the beginning kind of haunts him throughout the manga. Did you notice that?
Yeah, she keeps popping up like the same bikini model.
Yeah, like
which I love.
It
that
comes
for
up
her.
at the recording company.
Yeah,
meeting.
he was like doing graphic design with like the image of her, and then she's like
on the
they're
CD
like
cover
we're
or the
like
magazine
trying to
cover
groom
or what
her
have
to
you.
be like a rock star or whatever. So we want to like train her to sing and have you guys be like the backing band for her, basically.
Right.
And
even though the guy who's like pitching that to them, even he knows that this is just like such a very like manufactured pop star corporate interpretation of like this imperfect art that they put out there and that they tried to like achieve.
Yeah. Which is also one of the moments where I was like, I had like a lot of thoughts there, because I was like, on one hand, I'm like, fuck it, why not? You know what I mean? Like, why not be?
You can at least get a career in music, right? Like they turned down.
Yeah, I think that's maybe the
something.
pride. They talk about like Tanada, like his or Taneda, like his pride, like several times, like his like maybe that's where it's like coming in. It's like, I don't know, like it's to me it's like it's not that much different from like doing this other job that he's not super passionate about, but he has to do a job that he's not passionate about to like pay the bills. Right. Like he can continue to strive for like the thing that he does care about, but like until he has that, like he kind of is like mandated to just kind of like bite the bullet and like work in some kind of way, you know. So I don't know,
yeah,
but then
I was gonna say I like how the manga constantly frames that like initial like time frame of I can probably live off my savings for about a year, and as they both quit their jobs, it's like, well, you're gonna have to go back to work at some point, well, you're gonna have to grow up at some point. Like there's that constant reminder of like you can't be a kid anymore, right?
Yeah, which is also like such a unhelpful thing to say.
No, 100%. It doesn't solve any. It doesn't solve any of their problems. Yeah,
it's literally. I think it kind of like, I think it did a good job of illustrating how that people saying that kind of stuff, I feel like comes from this place of like fear and like inadequacy, because they're saying that because that's what they're doing. They're like, I've grown up, so you need to grow up too. And it's like, well, what if
her
they
female
succeed?
friend,
you know what I mean?
Like who's like the successful version of her, doesn't seem terribly happy. Like doesn't seem
right.
It's not good advice, even though it is in a way correct. Like it's like no one's wrong in this situation. It's just that's just how your 20s work in my mind, and it's a bummer.
I think something I really liked or something I was thinking about that I kind of enjoyed was like and I feel like I've seen this idea explored in other stuff, but I can't think of like, nothing comes to mind, but like the I think a lot about the idea of like not going after your dream or being kind of like dishonest with yourself, I guess. Maybe that's the thing, is like has like this negative effect on the people around you in a way, like because Mako can't crystallize her dream, like she can't even like that was the whole thing, and that's something that I really kind of liked, like this detail that she like tried to join the band or whatever and like quit
Yeah.
pretty quickly. It's like she can't even be part of this like amateur band. You know what I mean? She can't like fail in that way, and like
No,
because
she'd rather be a satellite to her boyfriend, right?
exactly, she's like I stay in like proximity of like this music culture that I'm interested in, but like I don't want to put myself out there. Like that starts to negatively manifest in her putting all this pressure onto her boyfriend for him to like achieve this dream and like become something like that is kind of what she's desiring. And like I think in the same way it kind of showed like how I feel like a lot of the people who like accepted this like corporate adult world type job or whatever like start projecting onto other people like you're gonna have to grow up eventually, because they're scared of the fact that like, well, if you quit your job and fuck around for a year and then become a famous rock star, then what the heck am I doing? Because it's like you're like because you're it's like challenging you in a way. I don't know if I'm articulating my point super well, but
Well, like the catalyst of the story is her quitting her job, right? And every
right.
character in the story, their story is a reaction to that choice. And
Mm-hmm.
so for some of them, what they tell her is, that's a terrible idea. What are you doing? You got to grow up. And then for others, it's, I wish I could do that, or I am inspired by this choice. Like her quitting her
Mm-hmm.
job, despite not being in the band, is what inspires the band to go for it, right? It's what puts enough pressure on their relationship that they have to, instead of having their relationship kind of fizzle out, like she implies a few different times and he implies a few different times that like we'll probably
Mm-hmm.
break up at some point and that will be sad, but it's like I don't care enough about this relationship to try and save it. That changes because she quits her job,
Mm-hmm.
even though the relationship still might not be worth saving because it was built on this unbalanced dynamic of
Mm-hmm.
she wanted to support this guy who she fell in love with because he seemed to have this passion, but then he might not even care enough about that passion to really go for it. And even when he does go for it, it doesn't necessarily work out either.
Yeah, framing it that way, like I think it is kind of cool and interesting in a way of like her taking a risk even though she doesn't know what she wants. Like she's not able to like articulate what she wants. She's not able to like
Mm-hmm.
join the band or like try and do anything like that. Like she quits her job and spends so much, she just like wastes a lot of time,
Right.
which
Which to me is way more
can
realistic.
can can time be wasted, like I think I think a lot of it is also to do with that shame and guilt, like that you should be doing something. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of scenes that show her like outside with the sun shining and her just appreciating it. It's like that's fucking important too. Like I don't necessarily consider it a waste, but like even though she's not striving towards the thing that she actually wants, all she's done is quit her job. It is like this risk and this kind of like jump into the like darkness that is enough to kind of like get people like waking up being like, oh, like you can take risks even at this
Right.
age.
Well, I think
um
it's telling that like the other member of their group that we haven't talked about, he's like a super senior. He's like he
oh
can't leave
yeah.
college because he is afraid of like not knowing what he wants to do or being like stuck in a boring job post college, and so
Hmm.
he just stays and can't like make that jump. And when he finally does, he just becomes like he like all of his distinct personality traits kind of fade away,
Mm.
which is a bummer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know, it's interesting because like reading it and like um the characters being like 24 and stuff like that, and
Mm-hmm.
like me being 27, like I don't know, I feel like I do look on it and like part of me just wants to be like it's not that deep, but like yeah, I don't
Right.
know, it is that deep, but I'm just like I don't know,
It's
like
universal. It's universal, like of an experience, I think.
yes,
But
yes,
it's
yes,
also,
yes,
but that doesn't
yes.
make it not meaningful is kind of where I come down on it. But I can see
Yeah.
bouncing off this character.
I'm not trying to
being like,
Yeah.
no, I think it's okay if you feel like, well, these just are not very interesting people. To me, I kind of I'm
yeah.
vibing with it being a story about not interesting people.
Yeah, and that's what he says in like the afterword, is that like I wanted to write a story about normal people, you know. That at least the afterwards that I read was like,
I missed this afterward. We both read different things.
You got the epilogue, I got the afterword. Yeah, the afterword he was just like, yeah, I wanted to write a story about like normal mundane people, and I'm like, that like hits. Like I like that. I think yeah, like thinking about it, like I'm coming off of my like feeling, because it's like, yeah, like I think that's what it's about. And I think I'm so used to stories about people who are creative and passionate and like going after something that is actually of substance, you know what I mean? Like is what I'm like almost used to and expecting, that seeing them like their ultimate song is like a little bit bland in like a weird way.
Well, it's literally like
like,
it's not even a concert performance. It's opening for a bigger band. Like it's
yeah.
so their mountaintop is so small, but that it's okay.
Yeah. No, totally. And I think when I say like it's not that deep, it's not. I don't mean to say that the manga itself is meaningless or not deep. Like I think that it is. Like we're able to have this much discussion about it. I think it is touching on a lot of like cool deep things. I think just more like, I think sometimes I feel like people can get like really worked up about like, oh my god, like that once I start doing this job, it's like the end of my life. It's like, well, you can like stop. And like I think that like that's what she did. Like she stops and she starts again, and like that's kind of life. Like I feel like it's, you know, people get so like paralyzed by like, okay, if I take this choice, like it's the end of my life type of thing. I guess that's the thing,
right?
Where I'm kind of like, you know, like you focus on, and like one of my favorite scenes was the drummer guy when he's working at the pharmacy and he's looking at the frog thing that's like this, and
the frog mailbox.
living in Japan, and it's not a mailbox, it's just
right.
a little statue of a frog, and he's like, this serves no purpose. And it's also like living in Japan is like really real. Like there's just a lot of like little statues of shit that's just like around, and I love those kinds of things. Like that's like that brings me so much joy. Like I just love little weird, like I can.
While you're pulling up your prop, to me, what that reminds me of is like the corporate art style in America, which is like, for a while, every, I don't know, Google ad had this certain style to it, which is just these characters that all look the same, but are like vaguely colorful and seem to be indicating like, it's fun to go to work and to fill out spreadsheets. And that's not my favorite art style for sure. It feels a little like lifeless.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that like idea of like, yeah, like when the art's to like promote a corporation, but like at the same, God, am I just revealing how like I'm just like,
I think you're
fully,
corporate pilled. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, corporate pilled. Because I don't know, like something about like weird little creatures. I'm like, I think about it, it's like, it's cool as humans that we like this kind of shit.
Well, I think that some people tend to, you know, like we talk about fulfillment, right? Of like, if you don't get a fulfillment out of your career, you have to get your fulfillment out of something. And that is a dangerous path, because I think sometimes people fulfill themselves with stuff that is ultimately like empty calories. Like I'm thinking about like a Disney adult, right? Who their personality becomes, how many times can I go to Disney World this year? Or I'm all about like buying this cute version of Stitch from Lilo and Stitch or something.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, I can be really self-critical. There's a shelf full of nerd tchotchke shit behind me. Like if I look in the mirror, exactly. If I look in the mirror, yeah, I probably do a little bit of that myself. I probably do a lot of that myself. but it can't be all that. It can't be all frog statues, right?
Yeah. I will so this is the kind of thing I'm talking about that I like. Is I got this cat that's like playing basketball. I named it Buckets. It did break. The basketball came off in an earthquake, but I will fix it one day. But like I just like shit like this cuz it's just like it's like you didn't have to make this. You know what I mean?
It's
And
way
it's
more
like
lifelike than I would have expected, which is creepy.
yeah, it's like just so weird. Like I like weird little oddities, you know? So I think a little less corporate. So yeah, like maybe that is the
To me, that's a better version
revulsion
of like
towards the frog at the drugstore, but like I'm
Right.
also to me it's like if I'm walking down the road, I would prefer to see a like cartoon frog going like this than to see nothing. And a lot of
Right.
street corners have nothing. So I'm
That's
like,
fair.
you know, you gotta. It's I'm not like losing my mind over the cartoon frog, but I'm like that's kind of fun. And then like I think in the same scene, he's like, yeah, there's no point in this cartoon frog being here, and he's just like standing in like he helps like this old man who thinks it's a mailbox and keeps like trying to put his mail in there. And then he has this whole conversation with him and like reveals all this stuff, and then the old man like later writes a letter to him to be like thank you or whatever. And I'm like I like that, and I feel like I also feel like there's a lot of meaning to life of that, like where it's like I don't know, I don't know that it has to all be this like all consuming thing of like my art and my passion, unless I'm like the most successful person ever in like art, then like I don't have any worth or whatever. Like it's like helping an old man figure out like a mailbox is like worth and like is where I feel like to me like a lot of those like day-to-day interactions where like you're able to help people like have a lot of meaning for me. So like I don't know, I like stuff like that, I guess.
I think that is the point of that scene, right? Like it's saying
Yeah.
that like you can find even like their interaction is brought forth from this corporate thing that he hates looking at, but then it becomes a meaningful connection with someone else. Like for that guy, for that old man who probably doesn't have very many conversations, like talking to this guy at the pharmacy while you're trying to mail your letters unsuccessfully, letters that are going to nowhere, that are going to like a passed away partner, that becomes meaningful, even though it's the catalyst for it is this, you know, statue that you get. I could see working at a pharmacy and being like, I'm so sick of looking at this mascot, right? It has the same energy of like, I'm working retail in December, and if I hear Mariah Carey one more time, I'm gonna kill everyone in this room and then myself. Like it's just, I get it, but at the same time, you can either sink into that and be like, there's nothing of value to get out of this experience, or you can find meaning in the little things, or you can throw it all. I think what our main character does by like throwing it all away and just trying to do a full reset is not the answer either. It's not very responsible. When I did it, it was very not responsible. And ironically, like I went into a retail job like immediately after that, and in that job I was much happier because of those little interactions, because of talking with people, right? Like that felt better to me than what I was doing.
That's like something like I feel like there's so much stuff like that gets devalued that I think should hold out. Like to me, like I don't know, I've enjoyed like the majority of like part-time jobs I've ever done, just in the sense of like I've worked at like a lot of restaurants and stuff, and it's like the interacting with customers, and it's like you're just kind of like trying to make people's day better, you know what I mean? And there's a certain weight of like when people are negative towards you that can like start to chip away at that, certainly. And like I think anytime that I was working those jobs, it was always like a temporary stint, so that probably also like factored into my feelings towards it. But like but I mean it's not that far off from what I do now, like as a teacher. Like it's my day-to-day interactions are about like just kind of trying to make people's happy and make lives a little easier. Like that's kind of always where my like focus is at. And like I think that like it sucks that like that's my anti-capitalism thing, is like it would be cool if like coffee shops were like more supported and you could like have a more
You can make a
fucking,
living doing that,
like
right? Like a
you can make a living
yeah.
and like not be, and also like not be shamed and looked down on so much for it, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like I think that's like a whole other factor to it that really sucks. And it's like you kind of get shamed no matter what you do, because then if you work the corporate job, then you get shamed for like selling your soul, where it's like I don't know, like you, I feel like you can pick up a paycheck and still have hobbies and have a nice life, and it's like, and
Right.
then if you, and like same with art, it's like at the amateur level, it's like, so what if you're not making it big, you know what I mean? Like the point of the art shouldn't necessarily be that like the entire fucking world loses their shit over it, you know what I mean? Like it still has meaning if you made it and it resonated with someone, you know what I mean? Like, and yeah, like I don't know, like I feel like a lot of these issues boil down to like, I guess, shame and judgment, I guess, and it's
Mhm.
like I don't
Well,
know,
and a
I
lot of
feel
that
like
seems to be
it's
coming from internally as well, with like with
totally,
MACODES
yeah.
essentially.
It gets built up over the years from the outside, but like you, from insecurity and like fear and like lack of confidence, like it starts to glomp on and become like this internal voice that is like telling you like everything I do fucking sucks and like all my choices are bad and like, you know. But yeah,
I I know it sounds like you're a little bit more down on this series than say Dawn to Dawn, which is the only other thing that I've pitched
Dun
to
Dun
you so
Dun
far.
rocks.
Dawn to Dawn does rock. To be clear, I also like Dawn to Dawn better, but I like that we've been able to have like a 45-minute conversation about this, and like it's getting me thinking more about the minor characters and about what they might mean. And I said this, I was posting about the series a few weeks ago when I first read it. So I still don't have all my thoughts formulated either, because it's not a
Mm-hmm.
series I've been like living with for a while. I think this is a manga that I will like more on a reread, or I'll
Mm.
get more out of. Like moments that seemed insignificant, I think I will pull meaning from, kind of like a good book,
Mm-hmm.
which is not normally my experience with manga. Normally, it's like the exciting chapters, the exciting panels, the exciting moments are obvious. And in this one, it feels like they're in the margins, which is cool. It's just a different
Yeah.
experience, right?
No, I think the length of it contributes to that. And like I will say, to its strengths, like I really like that it, you know, has a start and an ending and like
Mm-hmm.
is what it is and doesn't try to like milk itself for like volumes and volumes. Like I think it is a lot stronger for that. And I could also see myself revisiting it and like um definitely like having just read it and not had as much time to reflect. Like I think you definitely like opened my mind up on like a lot of the aspects of it for sure. I gotta say before, because I feel the like wrapping up,
Mm-hmm.
because what the fuck am I here for if not Japanese? Something that I realized because I was looking into the lyrics for the actual song, like Soranin,
Mm-hmm.
um, and uh, it wasn't until then it hit me. So do you know what Soranin is, or like Solanin? I guess
No, they do. They translate the song in the manga, but to me, it didn't
yes.
leave much of an impact, other than that it was supposed to be kind of like a mediocre love song that
Yeah.
gets a deeper meaning through his passing, and also through
Hmm.
their like her revisiting it over the course of the series.
So from what I could get, so Solanin, like the thing is like referring to like kind of a poisonous potato sprout, basically. Like the, I don't know if
Okay.
it's the chemical or the sprout itself. But basically the reason why it all suddenly like clicked for me was so in the lyrics there's like lines about like if you like plant a seed, it'll like bloom into like this like terrible kind of like bud, or like this like poisonous bud. And it's like I realized because the words, because so tane da tane means like seed, and then meiko, like may, is like the like a bud or a blossom. So it's like they're kind of like the two sides of it, of like, I don't know, it's like this weird kind of thing where it's like, if you read into it, like on surface level, it seems like, especially because Tanada's the one like writing this song, it's like he's kind of saying like, yeah, the two of us are like bad for each other in a way, or
Or
like
we're blooming into like a poison.
yeah, by investing in me, like you're creating something like not great or something like that. But
Oh wow.
in another way, like I think it also feels kind of like he was like potential and she's like the success in a way. Like he kind of, I mean, he died for her sins. Like he kind of was like the thing that inspired her to like reach her potential in a weird way. And then like there's also like, she reflects on the song. At first she's like, oh, is this like a breakup song? But then like upon reflecting back on it, she's like, oh, is this like he's talking about like breaking up with like his old self or something like that, you know?
There's different ways to interpret it.
Yeah, and you could probably get way more in the weeds, and there's probably like smarter people than me that have figured it out. But it's also, so then after seeing that, I was like, oh, I gotta get in on the name. So I was like searching everything up. So it's, there wasn't much else that was like that interesting name wise, but I will say like his like his last name is Taneda, so like his first name is Naruo, which is the kanji or like to become and a man. I mean, there you go. So it's like,
Carpe
it feels like
diem.
a lot about
Carpe
his
tuber.
character is a lot of his, a lot about his character seems to be about like becoming and potential, and he's like not, it's not like the state he's in is like not enough, like he needs to like grow, is kind of the feeling.
Well, and that's tragic, and I know that
Yeah.
like the
And then
naming
he
of your
dies.
child has a lot of like hidden meanings in it in Japan, right? Like how you write characters or what have you.
Mm-hmm,
And it's like, oh, even from birth, he had these expectations placed on him. Like that's a
yeah,
bummer to think about.
of like potential. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, yeah, beyond that, like name wise, I mean, like Yamada and Kato are like the most generic Japanese names that are ever existed. But Yamada's first name is Jiro, which is there's kind of a common like Japanese like naming thing for like boys, where it'll be like Ichiro, Jiro, I forget the third one. But basically like Ichiro is like the first son, and then Jiro is like the second son. Like it's literally written using the kanji for like next. So there's like an inherent like, he's like
hierarchy there.
yeah, he comes after, like he's like locked into this like subservient place,
Yeah,
almost
second son
to,
syndrome.
yeah, absolutely is kind of the vibe. So and especially because like sometimes people will like put a kanji in front of Jiro, like Jiro will be like the name ending, but he's just Jiro. So it's like his identity is defined by the fact that he's like second. That kind of feels like the thing. But yeah, I didn't read much into the names beyond that. Like a lot of them just seemed like average Japanese names, which I mean fits with like the theme of them being average people. But
right,
this was Japanese.
I miss so much in the translation. There's like a whole world in manga and anime that I just don't pick up on, and these little details I think are great because I wouldn't get them otherwise.
Do my best. But yeah,
thank you.
Try and catch other stuff. But yeah, that was the thing. So. And that's a game theory.
And despite all of those interesting details and all the well thought out pieces of Solanin the manga, you're ready to rank it a D. What do you get?
No, I'm not gonna rank it a D. It's not in the bottom tier was ooh. The next tier was okay. It's better than okay for sure.
Okay.
And I didn't mention the art. I think you said the art wasn't that good or something. I like the art. I thought it was
I like the art a lot. It's the backgrounds are hyper realistic, which is like this manga artist style. And I think that can kind of, at first I think it's really impressive because it stands out as being like hyper detailed. but you kind of like forget about it, like it fades into the background, at least in my experience. More so in Pun Pun, which is much longer than this. But at some point, it's almost like you're only watching the characters because everything else around them is just generic Tokyo.
Yeah. I definitely fixated a lot more on the characters, but I like the weird expressions. I like how the main character is drawn, like, or a lot of the characters, like, they look very human. They're not like, these generified, like, kind of faces. Like, they look like
he has a real, knack
the variety
for, like,
of faces
expression.
is really nice.
Right.
Absolutely, yeah. And the expressions are also really good. So I like the art. I liked the story. So definitely it's not okay. It's better than okay. But it definitely also, I don't feel like fits into deluxe with me. It didn't like hit my heart like so strongly that made me feel like so much passionate about it. So I would absolutely classify this as cute.
The manga about plain people doing plain things is cute.
The manga about people dying and crashing their cars. It would be higher, but it's fucking crazy that he crashes his motorcycle in like this scene that's like 2 scenes after the guy just died on his moped, and he just gets up and it doesn't matter.
That was a really weird tonal shift. It's like, now we're slapstick for a second. I'm like, what's going on?
It's kind of like, yo, the fuck is happening? The one good joke is where it's like showing like there's like a whole page spread dedicated to him like getting closer to the camera, and then he's like, "I got a new bike." That was good. I think some of the comedy didn't hit super hard, but that one was good. Yeah,
I gotcha.
No, it was nice. But yeah, it's cute.
Well, all that's left is for you to assign me my homework.
All that's left. So first, I thought I should bring back a segment that, we've been wanting for, the fans have been clamoring. It's time for another cryptic clue.
What does it mean?
So here's my cryptic clue for this week. That's my melody in Kuromi. And I'm now going to reveal what the cryptic clue refers to.
What was the first one? The first one was like ocean.
The first one's no longer canonical, or is it? That's the things get deeper.
I hate this segment. I hate it so much. It's like the worst part of our podcast.
You have to introduce a cryptic clue to
what
keep
does it
people on their
mean?
toes.
What does that mean? Because you're going to tell us what we're going to be like reading, watching immediately. So it doesn't make any sense.
I was going to introduce it in the banter, but then we started talking about something else. So then I was like, well, I'll just introduce it now.
I hate you.
It would be a waste of a cryptic clue for me to not. Okay, well, so this week, I thought a lot about what we were gonna watch. You had the logic last time of being like, because we both did things that we were really passionate about, and then you were like, oh, we should do something that we're kind of like, like not crazy about,
Right.
So then my logic was like, okay, this week I should be like annoying, right? Like that, because it's like that's like the side.
That's
of the
one
podcast
interpretation. I
I
wasn't trying to make you read something that you don't like.
No. But like I am in the future.
I see.
It's coming, so it's like I should try that. But that's why I was so debating on it, because I was going through all my annoying things and I was like just not feeling them. So you're very lucky. I'm actually recommending you something good this week, as opposed to something annoying. So you've evaded death another day. And yeah, maybe if I keep finding good content, I won't annoy you at some point in the future.
Are we still in the clue segment? What's going on?
No, we're not in the clues. Okay, I'll stop talking around it. So kind of about as close to a manga as I ever read in my day-to-day, I would like you to read a webcomic
Okay.
this week. This is a webcomic that I am very, very much in love with right now. It's still currently releasing. The title of it is What Happens Next. It is a story about there's actually, oh my god, there's I was pulling up the guy who writes its website, and he had like a really good summary. um yeah, I'm just gonna read what it is. What Happens Next is a comic about the aftermath of a murder, posting on the internet, the Midwestern United States, being gay and transgender. So I feel like that's like really what we're going for here.
Okay.
So this is very much my very much my wheelhouse. I have so many thoughts about this comic. It's something that I really enjoy, and I think that you will enjoy it too.
But Mallory, I hate the Midwest.
I hate the Midwest, and I'm not gay or transgender. Yeah, no, it's very interesting. Almost kind of touches on like similar themes of like the like young adulthood, but definitely a lot fucking messier than Solanin.
Sure.
Very very messy, and yeah, I think so yeah, one stipulation about this is, so it's kind of been being released in chapters, but it's very much like a thing that the creator just releases as he writes it, like panel by panel. So currently the 5th chapter is in progress, so I don't want to touch that. And then the 4th chapter, like the first 2 are very very short. The 3rd one's a little longer. The 4th one is like longer than the first 3 combined, and
Hype.
is like my favorite one, and
Classic
it's so
webcomic.
crazy. So it's like, yeah, like it's very much, and like the 5th one I'm like, it's probably gonna be even fucking longer, you know what I mean? So it's like the scope of what I want you to read this time is like those first 3, because I think they just work together as like one story. And then I feel like that 4th chapter that is like the length of the whole comic could definitely be like its own thing later down the line. But
And it's called What Happens Next?
What Happens Next. I will send you the link.
So nobody leaves until we finish What Happens Next, season 1, chapters 1
Nobody
through 3.
leaves until we finish. Each of the comics actually has a cool, the first chapter is called Dog Names, which is goes so hard, and you'll find out why. But like, nobody leaves until we finish Dog Names someone else, and no matter what, I think it can be. I think it can be. It can be What Happens Next, and then we'll just let people know that they gotta wait for the rest of it. But yes.
Well, sounds good.
Yes. Are you feeling relief that I haven't like brought the axe down on you of like,
not until
we still
I see
haven't
the art
hit
style. I have to know how webcomic-y are we getting? Are we getting like scrawled on a napkin, or are we getting something that's like I can sink my teeth into?
Well, you were saying Solanin could have been a book, so we'll see if you think this one could be a book. But
that's fair.
Yeah.
I like how we still haven't done the same format twice.
Yeah, that's
anime season, video game, manga, and now webcomic.
Yeah, that was another big factor that I was thinking, and like why, like I really wanted to do this, but I was like, we just did manga, so I don't know if webcomic is the same genre as manga.
That
but
works
I'm
for
like,
me.
it feels different enough, so we can still continue the streak of doing different, like we haven't even done music, we haven't done a movie yet, like there's still a lot of stuff we can touch, but yeah.
All right, until next week.
Enjoy it. Until next week. Have a good day, Sam.
Have a good evening, Mallory.